Hey everyone, this is Catching Up with the Nerds with your host Tom and today's guest, Sarah. Catching Up with the Nerds is a lovely podcast about nerdy stuff run by two dads. Well, just one dad today because it's just me as JC is away for business. So yes, not new, but a familiar face is in with us today. Like I said, Sarah, who is the what shall I call you, the director of anime here at the Catching Up with the Nerd podcast.
Yes, I direct all anime. That's how it works. You have one person in charge of a whole medium. Congratulations.
That's you. So this is Sarah and I'm Tom. I'll let you introduce yourself right now. Go for it.
We're introducing the co-host before the actual host. Bold
move.
Hi, I'm Sarah Rawlings. I was previously on this podcast for the three-parter anime that we discussed how we got into it and what we recommended. I am a mother of one nearly 2-year-old, which is frightening to say out loud.
Already?
Happily, he turns 2 next week. Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah. Been happily married for nearly 8 years. Thank you again for having me back.
It's a pleasure as always. And my name is Tom. And I've been married for about 13 years now to my lovely wife. We've got 2 kids, one who is turning 12 in the summer already, 12, imagine, and whose name Emily, and the youngest one who is just turned 4 2 weeks ago, named Louis. Is a very interesting kid, very energetic, and takes his time to fall asleep, like today.
Here.
Yeah. So Sarah's into anime, and I'm massively into video games and comics also, and anything Marvel related or DC related.
I'm not just anime, No,
you're more than anime. You're also.
But we talk about video games every time, all the time.
A lot. And for those who don't know, Sarah and I work together at a big company. We will stay quiet. No, we can say the name. We work together at Sony, and we've known each other for a bunch of years now. At least must be 5.
Yeah, we've both been in the company for 5 years.
Yeah,
now.
5 years. 5 years. So it's been a while. Right. Anyway, Sarah, what are we here for today? I think we're here for something quite cool, which is Women's History Month. And I thought we should do a little episode about strong women character or cool women character. I don't know how we define that. I think we had a little chat before we started recording, but into what it means. But what's your take on, how should we say, strong women leads in either movie, video games, animes, comics, whatever. In the entertainment.
The trope, the strong female character with capital S, capital F, and capital C.
Hey.
Yeah, so the strong female character, I'm sure a lot of people who follow nerd culture will be very aware of this trope. It was kind of rose prominence in the 80s and 90s as an answer, the opposite of a damsel in distress, especially rose prominence in the 90s with the rise of girl power and feminism. So it's supposed to be the answer for most women characters in the past, and early stages of TV and film were very much just the wives, the girlfriends, the victims, etc. But in the 80s and 90s, they start to become more female leads, especially with action movies, horror films, fantasy. They will basically become much more three-dimensional. The strong female character trope can be seem more controversial these days, because what happens is there's quite a few people in the past who've made strong female characters that are basically physically strong, really powerful to the point of ridiculousness, that they have no weaknesses, they're absolutely perfect, no flaws whatsoever, which is an argument that is not really relatable, and also it means that women can only be victims or absolutely perfect and absolutely nothing in between. So, but obviously in the late, especially with the golden age of television for the last 5 years or so, we've had a wealth of different characters, and also in obviously video games and stuff like that, where women are allowed to be pretty much anything they want and have so many different layers and be compelling characters, whether they're villains or protagonists. So strong female characters are pretty much what you think they are. They're women who are strong, but they are, and from us, we're talking about ones that we found it inspirational for a multitude of reasons across different mediums.
Yeah, so it's interesting you said that, because when you said that you've got a lot of overpowered characters now in in movies or video games, I instantly thought about Captain Marvel. So I was like, she's on my list of characters that I really love, women characters, strong characters, for very simple reasons, because I think Emily, my daughter, really likes her and looks up to her. So I think it's quite interesting. But the reason why I like her is because she's overpowered. So it's quite
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have male power fantasies, you have female power fantasies, but I think the argument back in the early, like I said, the 80s and 90s, was that it felt like either the women were the helpless victim that must be saved by the man, or they were super strong women who don't need no man. It was like, but you've got so much gap in between, whereas men, it felt like, could be anything you wanted and look like any way you wanted, where women could only be curvaceous and sexy. And if you're watching me looking really silly, but what people who are listening audibly I'm moving my body in a weird way, trying to physically represent. But but nowadays we've got so many different female characters that are inspirational, that really bring out different facets of our characters that we can really relate to, as well as fantasize about it. Like how I wish I was this person, I was as strong as this person, or I had these powers. I mean, I love as you guys recently covered WandaVision. I loved how her outfit, and I loved her seeing her powers, and it's like, I wish I could do that. Why don't my eyes glow like that? Why, Tom? Why?
Well, it's funny you mentioned WandaVision, because Wanda is one of those characters that she's, again, overpowered. She's allegedly one of the strongest characters in the entire universe, but she's very, I'm trying to picture sometimes if she would have been done in the 80s, if that character would have been on TV in the 80s, how maybe unidimensional she would have been. And there, if you look at the way she's portrayed in the universe right now, she's very complex. Well, not complex. She's going through a whole bunch of emotions, and those are clearly shown in detail on screen. It's quite interesting that it's like mental trauma and mental health issues that she has, and yet she's overpowerful in terms of her skills and powers. I find it really good that we got to see this. It's not just that super character that just comes in and destroy half the universe and just gets on with the next mission. It's like, well, her actions have consequences, and those consequences can take their toll on her as a person. So I thought that was always a very good portrayal.
Yeah, the portrayal of her grief is supernatural, but how she feels losing her husband and losing herself in a fantasy in that grief is very human, and that's why the show was so compelling, because it's a story we can all either been through or can relate to. And
it's like you can relate. Yeah, you can relate on so many levels, yet there's still that extraordinary outcome to it.
Especially nowadays when we're stuck at home and we're getting lost in television worlds just because we want to escape the kind of horrible world we're currently in at the moment. So again, that into a fantasy world again is very relatable. So yeah.
Indeed, yeah. I was going to say, I had somebody else, but I think so. The aim of this episode is, again, going for a bunch of recommendations of who we thought were badass characters, and we got a little bit of everything in there, and I think your list looked promising, and there's a couple of ladies on there that I was like, I had them. I agree with those. So we'll go for a bunch of recommendations. We're trying to go for 3 each, maybe a few more. We'll see how we go. Recommendations of badass, strong, awesome, inspiring. What else? What other words?
Epic, amazing.
Epic, amazing female leading characters. And again, being that in video games, movies, comics, animes. So with that said, why don't you get us started? I think your first one is video game related, right?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I've been basically into video games since I was like 3 years old. Since I can remember, so I've loved video games. So there's been a wealth of wonderful female characters in video game history, especially the Final Fantasy series, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Do you play Final Fantasy, Tom? I can't remember now.
So I've played 7. It's pretty much the only Final Fantasy I've ever played, but it's weird things like the game in itself. I'm not really massively into it, but I actually like the artwork. I like the design of it.
Yeah.
And I always thought the characters look cool. That's the
Yeah.
one thing they got for it. But I never fully got into the whole universe. But I know it's one of those classics. So it's it's a big name. But yeah.
Yeah, well, so Final Fantasy VII has Aerith and Tifa, and of course Yuffie. There's every single series has got a wealth of female characters. I've always been very good at having diversity in there. So a lot of people listening probably going to expect me to reference one of those, but actually one of those I'm going to reference a character that's not always referenced, but I've always loved this character, and I'm going to talk about Lulu from Final Fantasy X. So Final Fantasy X was the first Final Fantasy to release on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And I remember going into Blockbuster, nostalgia trip.
God, old school, yeah.
Going to the Blockbuster and seeing like the games to like hire for the weekend, and seeing a cover of Final Fantasy X. And I remember one copy had like an insert of a sort of official artwork inside in the middle, and it was of this character I'm talking about, Lulu. She's the black mage in this universe, so a woman, a sorceress who can cast black magic, so fire, water, ice, etc. She's kind of standing there in a big really defined pose with her amazing iconic dress, got a hand out like protecting the main heroine, which was Yuna. And I just remember seeing that image and just being like in complete awe of her, and I loved the character playing it when I was a kid. And then when I replayed it a couple of years ago, I ended up not only still loving, because sometimes when you replay stuff when you're older, sometimes what you love them for either is not there anymore, or you just kind of see it. Like maybe it was what you liked before, it's not the same as what you like now. But I end up liking her more than I did. I was a bit worried that I just loved her for a gothic outfit, because it isn't. If you Google Lulu Final Fantasy VII, you can see she's massive corset, fur at the top, and then like a skirt just covered in belts. It's amazing, impossible to cosplay, but amazing.
You know what? That's exactly what I was thinking. Is like I was literally thinking about. I've never seen anyone dressed like that at Comic-Con.
Well, I've seen a couple online, and you have to make it yourself, otherwise it just looks naff. Because I've seen some on eBay and they look terrible. Which is why I'll never cosplay, because I can't make outfits like that. But I loved her as a young girl because of her outfit. But one of the things that I really liked about her was she's a black mage in the game. She casts really powerful magic. She looks intimidating. She has a power. Her main weapon is a doll, which sounds a bit lame, but she actually controls the doll with magic, and she makes it crawl across the ground and hit enemies in the face. It's great. And so she learns the most powerful spells in the game. That's what makes her the strong. But one of the things I really liked about what I discovered when I replayed it recently was, in the main game, you've got the main character Tidus, who's someone who's not from this world and suddenly just thrown into this world and doesn't know any of the rules or any of the religions, and they've got a big bad named Sin who comes around like once every 10 years or so, kills everything, and then what they summoners in this world have to do is go on a pilgrimage and stop Sin, but at the cost of their life. And this is what their whole world religion set on, and Lulu is one of the summoners, sort of guardians, to get her to a final destination to kill Sin. And this world is very heavy on religion. Like, you don't question the religion, and that's kind of what's challenging the game. Like, Tidus discovers that this is actually not what it seems to be. And what I loved about Lulu is that, unlike the other characters, whenever Tidus says, "What does this mean? And why do you guys do that?" all the characters are like, "Why are you questioning this?" And at first, Lulu is a bit like this, but then she kind of like she has a compassion to her. She comes off as a bit cold and aloof, but she's actually got quite a lot of compassion, and she's got a capacity to listen. So later on, she just kind of tells Tidus what's going on, and is understanding the fact that he's not sure what's going on. And later on, when her world and her faith is challenged, she listens and absorbs the information rather than lashes out like some of the other characters do. And that's what I like about her so much, that she seems cold and badass on the outside, but she does have that soft side in the inside, and she learns and grows slowly over the course of the game, and she accepts that not everything she's learned is correct, but she does, I think that kind of thing of listening to other people is a really nice trait to have, especially in these days where political climate is very hostile. It's like you can't talk about anything or discuss anything in front of anyone. Whereas I think listening and understanding other people is a really nice trait to have, especially in a world full of evil as this one and that this one is. So
and the one we live
I
in,
think
yeah.
So yeah, I as much as I love the other women in Final Fantasy series, but Lulu's the one that I've always really held close to my heart to this day.
That's really cool. Actually, again, it's not the one of the character I know the most about. So she does I don't know, she looks slightly different from the rest of the characters in Final Fantasy. Like somebody who's got like dressed as a goth with a teddy bear.
There's only like one other girl who's like the goth outfit, and that's in the sequel. Her name's Pain, of course. You know, why if you're Pain, why would you have a name Pain? I for record, I really like Pain as well. Yeah, so she's kind of really stands out from the crowd in terms of outfit, but again, it's like the most amazing outfit you can't really complain. It's an iconic dress. So
yeah, the dress is iconic.
I think it's inspired by a lot of more of our world gothic romantic goth sort of scene. But yes, so I think she does stand out from the crowd in terms of the thing. But yeah,
is she just in Final Fantasy X, or is she coming back throughout the rest of the series?
No. So each Final Fantasy is its own separate story.
It's a separate. Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can play Final Fantasy VII. So that's one of the great things about Final Fantasy. You can pick any number entry and just jump in. If you don't like it, you can try another one. So, for example, 10 and 10-2 are obviously 10-2 is a sequel to 10, but 11 is not a sequel to 10, and 12 is not a sequel to 11, etc., etc. They tend to have similar themes across the series, but they're not always exactly the same.
Dude, I just feel ashamed now. Final Fantasy is one of those classics, and I didn't even know the basic, the fact that they're all different. I was convinced they're part of the same universe as like one continuous story. Jeez. I need to change podcasts. I'm going to stick to something else.
Now you know, and now it's half the battle.
Oh, dude, that's what we're here for. We're learning. Exactly. Hey, that's what we're here for. We're learning. We're teaching kids also to learn about.
And now you know. Now, if you want to give Final Fantasy VII a try, it's on PlayStation Network, the original, and you also got the remake,
the remaster, right?
Yeah, remaster, or you could try another Final Fantasy. Most of the Final Fantasies are available on current generations because they're so beloved. They've luckily been re-released quite a few times now.
So do you know if Lulu is one of the most, well, I was going to say beloved, or one looked up to in terms of characters? Do you think she's super?
Well, whenever I will say, whenever the Twitter accounts for like Final Fantasy and all that, they tend to obviously use like from Final Fantasy X, it tends to be Yuna or Riku, because they also appeared as main characters in the sequel, or in other entries they focus on Aerith, Tifa, etc. Lulu's not always referenced as much, and that's probably why I felt compelled to kind of, perk her up a little bit more, because everyone could talk about Aerith, everyone could talk about Yuna, everyone can talk about Garnet from Final Fantasy IX. I want to talk about Lulu.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. It's always it's one thing, like when you identify with someone or you look up to someone, it's always I'm that way also. That I was kind of not looking at the obvious is not the word I'm looking for, but like one of the primary characters, maybe. One of the leading characters. Like even though we said this is about leading characters and stuff, but sometimes it's awesome to have your own little thing that maybe you think not everyone follows and looks up to. But yeah, definitely that one. That it's you got me. I discovered something on that one, because it's not. Again, Final Fantasy is not really my thing. But all right, cool. In the spirit of time, let's move on. Noted. Lulu, Final Fantasy X. Go get it if you want to get into one. Would you say it's the best Final Fantasy? One last question about Final Fantasy. Is there such a thing as the best one? Is it very
okay? So this is a very contentious question. So
exactly.
If you ask me what the best Final Fantasy is, I would say 6 is the best one.
Okay.
But in terms of my favorite, and in terms of what I think is probably the best one to start with, they're the same, and it's 10.
Okay, cool. Well, there you go. You got it. Let's go with that. All right, my turn then. First recommendation for awesome character. So this is a bit of a weird one, because you've seen it from my list. I'm going to spit it out now, but I've put Ellie from the Last of Us series. And that one's really weird, right? And I don't know if you'll agree with me, because let me just quickly talk about who Ellie is, and I'm just going to go with the blurb that was on unshamedly copied and pasted from a website. So in part one, Ellie is a 14-year-old girl who grew up in the very, very disgusting world, post-apocalyptic world. I can't say apocalyptic. No, I just said it. Well, she's an orphan and she's raised in this school, and she's used to all this horribleness that is outside this militarized world that has been overrun by zombies. After an worldwide outbreak. Sounds familiar, this sort of story, but it's been redone. It's done well. So the cool thing with her, that she's got those personality traits that sort of identified with at the time, was like, she's naive, but she's also curious, and she's very clever like me, and she's also very wise.
She's also French.
Yeah, she's also French.
She's not French like you.
You don't know, she's French descendant, so she's that's why she's so cool. She's very clever, she's very wise, so she knows how to take care of herself and people. I was going to say others, but there's nobody to take care of, and you don't want to. Usually people are a bit dodgy in the post-apocalyptic world. And she loves comics, she loves music, she loves pop culture, she likes everything that and there's this funny sentence, like she likes everything that reminds her of a world that no longer exists. I'm like, oh god, that's cool. So that's Ellie. I think in part one of The Last of Us, she's helped by Joel to go from east to west, I think. East coast to west coast, I believe, or was it west to east? I can never remember. One of the two. She's got to travel to somewhere across America to help. What's the name again? The faction she's helping. Fireflies. That's the one. Helping
Fireflies.
Yeah, Fireflies. To find a cure for the zombie virus, and the cure is in her blood apparently, because she's immune to any sort of spores and disgusting stuff that's floating out there. So stuff happened. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who's not played it. And she died or doesn't die. We don't know. Well, she doesn't, because she's in part two. There you go. There's my spoiler. And in part two, she's slightly older. And you see her relationship evolve with other people that she now lives with, because she's part of this town that's got electricity, running water, food, medical supplies, and she's now running around and being part of a squad that is going around to look for zombies and maybe clean up a little bit in case they're just roaming around the town, and make sure everyone and everything is safe and sound. And again, not going to spoil anything for anyone who's not played the part two. But she's got a massive story arc that evolves, and pissed off a bunch of people. I think also part two did, not just Ellie, but Joel and what's her name, Abby. So this is where I thought it's a bit weird, because I loved Ellie in part one, absolutely loved her, and she's a playable character, but she's sort of following you around as you're playing Joel for most of the story. But then there's I think the second half, or the last third of the game, where you actually just play her.
She's only playable in one act, but she's more playable in DLC Left Behind.
Left Behind, yes, absolutely. She does. The entire game is just with her, and her friend. So I really loved her in part one, and in part two, I loved her for most of it. But then the ending, again, not trying to spoil, but you've played part two, right? Yeah,
of course.
And
I think to avoid spoilers, it's the kind of person who makes a really bad decision, and you really want to stop. You want to go up to them and say, "No,
just
don't do this," and it breaks your heart that they do it anyway. That's kind of the least spoiler way we can do it, because it's the kind of person we've seen or like grow up, and we obviously haven't. There's a big gap that we've missed, but to them, because we've saved her in the first, we journeyed with them in the first game, we felt very attached to them. So when it's basically watching someone we know and love making bad decisions, and you just want to hold them close to please don't do this, we love you.
So let me rephrase that. It's not that I don't like her in part two, it's just that her decision pissed me off, and because we've played as her in part one and in most of part two to start with, and she becomes this person that you almost know because she's so relatable. it almost hurts because you have no influence on that decision she makes at the end, and you're like, no, like I'll be you, like, or you be me, you know what I mean? Like I'll be like, no, stop the game now. We don't need this. You don't need to do what you have to do.
Just end at the happy point, and then that's it.
Exactly.
Nothing ever happens.
Happy place, happy place. Yeah. But I mean, I've put Ellie on my list of recommended characters. I could have put Abby as well, because of the stir she caused, and I love that she caused that stir. And again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, feel free to go on Twitter and just look up Abby. Last of Us
or alternatively, don't.
Oh, don't. Otherwise, you'll punch your screen.
Just play the game, and then if you feel the need, do it. But don't do it before playing the game. Don't let it color your perceptions, because the spoilers leaked before the game, and everyone had like a massive. Because reading a story synopsis and actually experiencing it are two different things. So everyone was angry at the story synopsis, and then when you actually go and play it, it makes more sense in context. But if you just read any movie synopsis, it's going to look a bit rubbish.
And both characters to me were really strong, really awesome and powerful, and really relatable. I mean, even though I'm spoilers, I'm not a woman, but I really thought they were really good in what they bring into the story. And it's so. And again, going back to Abby, was like the perception that people had of her, and including myself from before I started the game, was, oh, she's this like super big, strong, powerful woman. But like as you play her and you go through the years with her, she's just as as vulnerable and passionate, and just like she's going through a bunch of stuff, and that makes her who she is. And her character, I thought, was brilliant. It's probably funny enough, it's not a popular opinion, but it's like I'm one of those that actually enjoy playing as Abby a lot more than Ellie in part 2. But the big thing to take away is that one of the biggest video game in the last few years, the two biggest characters in there are women. And I thought that was a pretty cool stuff. Like as well, again, I don't know how spoilery that is to say that Joel got sent away somewhere on holiday, dispatched somewhere. You end up playing with Ellie and Abby, and both of them bring different things, and even in terms of gameplay, they have different elements. Like Ellie is a lot more I was gonna say nimble, but like she's a lot lighter on her feet, and she moves faster, and she'll take more for her to kill someone. Yeah, she's got a bow. It'll take more from her to kill someone, whereas Abby's just straight raw power. And like you see it when you move around. It's like it's a lot. She's I was gonna say heavy-footed, but it's like it's who she is. Like she's not as subtle and will not hide in the same places and attack people from behind. No, she would just go straight in there and smacks. I thought that was badass. I thought that was freaking awesome. To have both sort of physics involved in the game. I thought that was pretty awesome, interesting to see it, and to say that, look, you got two different women, and you can play two different ways. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So usually, again, like especially in video games, like when you have female characters, it's like, well, it's either the princess, Mario, gotta save the princess, that is like everything's pink and fluffy, and it's just like, okay, fine. But then you get those characters that are, gritty and that have that again, that raw power to them, and extremely clever also, and then they get stuff done. So there you go. That's mine for me. Play The Last of Us. Everyone, just play Last of Us. The three of them. There's not just two. It's part 1 and 2. There's what's the one in the middle? The DLC again? You said it earlier.
It's Left Behind, so it's part of episode 1. But they're making a TV series out of it, and they've already cast the two leads, Joel and Ellie, and I'm really looking forward to it. When they originally announced, I think it was a couple of years ago, they're going to make it into a movie, but I thought trying to cram the film into the whole game into a movie is going to be. But now they're going to make it a TV series, which allows the story to breathe. I'm really, really excited to see, especially since it's got the guy who did Chernobyl, and he was a really good writer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with it.
But I think isn't this the TV series going to be before part 1? Is that what it's supposed to be? It's not going to be. I
haven't heard that, right? But I was under the impression it was the first game, because obviously they cast Joel and Ellie, but we'll have to wait. Maybe they'll do flashbacks or expand the story, because there is room to see more of Joel before the whole world went to Zombieville. So very possibly, but hopefully they'll do. They've got one of the girls who played one of the characters in Game of Thrones to do Ellie.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they bring that character to life, because she is a very beloved character.
There's a lot of room to take that story anywhere. You could have it set between the two games. You can have it set before game part 1, or obviously you can't do it after part 2. But hey, again, it's got a lot of potential to it. Is there a release date for that for the series? I don't even know if there's one.
I don't think so, no. But with everything going on at the moment, who knows whether they even start. I think they only started casting like a month ago, so they probably haven't even started filming yet. But I don't know.
We'll find out. All right, moving on with which is your second pick, and I think that was also my pick, and now we can talk about it together. There you go.
Yeah, so my second pick, who often tops a lot of strong female character lists.
Yes.
So it's probably not gonna say anything new or groundbreaking in terms of this, but it's a character that I've loved ever since I was a little girl, someone who I wanted to practically be, and I'm talking about Buffy Summers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a 90s TV show which was a mixture of teen, horror and comedy, unique blend. The TV show was very groundbreaking for its time. There was not many shows that kind of did that sort of serialized story, and had that unique mix together, and also to pull it off extremely well with not just like great characters, great wonderful arcs, love, fantastic theming, and like less like things going on, the cinematography and everything like that, and brilliant special effects. It lasts for 7 seasons, and Buffy Summers is a character that grows across the whole 7 seasons. Obviously she so the story is that she's a vampire slayer, is a chosen one to basically kill all the vampires, all the evil of the world. So she's when she's actually from a long line of chosen ones, so she's the latest one to have like supernatural strength, speed, prophetic dreams, and semi-fast healing. So she at first she kind of looks like your typical girl power, I'm going to save the world kind of thing. At the very start of the story, she's a bit more, I suppose you could say, kind of like naive sort of cheerleader sort of, because she was a cheerleader before she got her powers. So she was kind of more a bit airheaded and in her own sort of world.
Carefree,
but then carefree, I suppose another word for it. But then when she gets her powers, she obviously has to learn to grow up very quickly. And I've always loved about her is that even though it's especially in the earlier seasons, she wants to kind of like, it seems to be that she just wants to live a normal life and not be the slayer, but time and time again she constantly puts others before herself. She saves the world multiple times and died twice for it. Spoilers, obviously, but I think it's a running gag that she died for it. And despite losing, the people she loves, there's a very heartbreaking episode in season 5 where she loses one of her main members. I won't say that just in case people still haven't seen it. But she doesn't grow cold or stops loving people or anything like that. She's still a very cheerful person. She's still she has a wicked sense of humor. She's always there for her friends and family, no matter what it goes through. And even in season 6, when this will be spoilers, but like I said, it's a very old show.
Fine,
she comes back from the dead. Well, she comes back from the dead in season 6. She gets ripped out of heaven. She comes out. Her friends pull out of paradise to bring her back to basically keep the world safe again. And she's understandably, she's detached. She feels like she's missing something. She doesn't know how to put herself in this world anymore. But she still fights the good fight. She still goes out there and defeats vampires. She's still there for her friends, and she's just a really amazing character. But as you see her grow across the whole 7 seasons, you really feel like you know her and you want to be her or be best friends with her. And I think that's why she's still the test. I rewatched this recently because it was on Channel 4 over in the UK, and now it's on Disney Plus. But I rewatched the whole thing, and it's still, I notice a lot of especially with creator Joss Whedon also been in the news recently for obviously
a lot of
for
stuff
what's happened. And I also know that, you know, some of the feminism and other stuff has not held up as well. Like there's rarely any good black characters in the show, but I don't think what it has achieved shouldn't take away from what it did achieve, which is a fantastic show with great characters and a wonderful layered feminist characters. And then I also loved Willow and a few other female characters that appeared in the show. But
Yes.
Buffy is a character that, and Sarah Michelle Gellar, you probably don't really know because she doesn't really act these days. But if you just go and watch Buffy and especially all the all the episodes, you see how much of a fantastic actress she is and how she's able to go from comedy to tragedy to serious and supernatural, and how she just bounces back so quick. She's a brilliant actress. It's a shame she's not in more because, you know, she's amazing in the show. But yeah, I'm your turn, Tom. You start talking about, because you want to talk about this as well. I feel like I've talked quite a bit now.
No, so the funny thing with Buffy, right? It's when did it start? I think it was about 96, 95. I think the first season. So it must have been around that year. But I wasn't really into it. But like all the girls in my school were massively into it. And I was like, okay, you know, but it was always back in my mind. I was like, one day I'll get into it. And the funny thing is, so, you know, back in '99, I was I had a knee surgery, and I was out of it. I was on my sofa / you know, going from my sofa to my bed the entire summer of '99. And back in the day, that was on TV, on French TV, pretty much every evening there was an episode. And Buffy really got me through that shitty period of being on the sofa and just being able to, you know, and being relying on everyone else around you to ask for anything. You know, can I get a glass of water here? Or there you go. You gotta bother someone for that. And so, you know, you can become miserable after an operation. And I was like, you know, Buffy was there on TV to cheer me up, and I really got into it, massively into it. So that's where, as a character, she was massively important to me growing up. And yeah, and she's badass. Like she's kicking like monsters and vampires' asses all day long, you know. And she's again, it's a great coming of age story as well. And I always, you know, it's always appreciated, especially well, how was I? I was 18. I just turned 18 when I was actually got into it. And again, you can so relate to that at that age, when you have somebody that looks like she's the same age than you are, and she's doing this kind of stuff. Obviously, there's always the extraordinary story and settings around it, but there's the entire universe around her it's very grounded. You know, it's like stuff you would go through. Like you go to school, she goes to school, and she's got love heartbreaks, and you know, she but also, yeah, it's not only Buffy herself, but the crew around her was also very cool and funny. It goes from having extremely funny episodes and also very dark and very real, sad,
well, grounded in like everyday grounded, issues. Yeah.
And then the second thing I really love about Buffy the Vampire, not only the character, but I think it's got one of the best episodes, like TV series episode, one of the best thing I've ever watched, which is the episode, I think it's season 4, episode something, Hush, which is
season
silent
4.
Yeah, season 4, which is like a silent episode. Hang on, let me just go. Yeah, season 4, episode 10, which is almost entirely silent. There's no dialogues, nothing, no words. It's just everything's music, and you know, whimsical.
Just to give a context for the audience in case they weren't aware. So Joss Whedon is known for his very particular mode of writing and speak called Buffy speak, is a trope on itself. And everyone said that, you know, basically all you're really known is for how you write stuff. So he decided to challenge himself and write an episode where basically no one talks. Yeah. And the reason for the episode is that a demon steals all their voices. So basically the whole 90% of the episode, people have to act with their faces and their hands and all writing things down, and it's got a fantastic score to back it up, and it's got one of the most scariest monster designs of the series. So yeah, it's really, really good. But yeah, season 4 has a lot of really, really good standalone episodes as well. I really love Something Blue. Is one of my favorite, funniest episodes of the season.
Yes, that's a great episode. I mean, it's
season 4. Yeah, so there's a lot of episodes across the series where they try something new and they just hit it out of the park each time. So yeah, but yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer definitely holds up, and if you've got Disney Plus, then there's absolutely no reason not to watch it really. It's all there. So that is Buffy the Vampire Slayer that we should both love. What's your second choice, Tom?
All right, second choice, I'm going with the X-Files, and especially the X-Files and her main lead character, Dana Scully, who was so awesome. I cannot stop thinking about her, even now to this day. So for those who don't know what the X-File is, it was a sci-fi drama TV series that ran, I think, all the way throughout the 90s and early 2000s. I think it's about 9 seasons of it. And it follows those two guys, two FBI special agents, Fox Mulder and Dana Scully, and they investigate X-Files. What are X-Files, you ask? And what X-Files is everything that is involved with paranormal activities and phenomenons. So you've got, on the one hand, Fox Mulder, who's this guy who's has been put sort of, from FBI agent that's been led all the way to the basement because he's got these outlandish theories and grand ideas of things going on, like UFOs abducting people and the ghosts and unexplained phenomenons. And they were obviously his bosses went, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. Please go away." So they quietly moved into the basement, as you do. But then one day he's assigned another FBI agent who is also a doctor. Is she? I think she's a. She's not a doctor. She's what's the word? She's a scientist in general. I keep forgetting what she does. And she's got to go in there and trying to discredit Fox Mulder, basically. But she ends up doing quite the opposite, and she went from a unbeliever to an actual believer, or so we think, by the end of it. Dana is just badass. She goes in there and she's kind of like me. She's like she only believes what she sees and what she witnesses. And as things progress throughout the story, she's confronted by a bunch of things she cannot explain. She's trying to explain them scientifically, but then Mulder is always there to say, "Well, nah, actually, this is what happened. It's just a straight up UFO that's flew over us." And she'll be like, "Nah, it's just a plane." So it leads to a bunch of very either funny episode or highly dramatic episode. And obviously it went from those two having a platonic friendship relationship to a romantic one by the end of it. X-Files went on to, I think this is a short 10 season. I mean, I know season 10 that was brought by Fox a while ago, and I believe there might have been an 11th.
Was there a movie, or am I thinking?
There's two movies, I think. There's two feature movies. There's one that was like 97, 98, called The X-Files, I think. Or was it? Yeah, and then there's another one that could release, I think, about 10 years ago. I think 2008, 2009, around this. What was it? I Want to Believe. Yeah, X-Files, I Want to Believe. That was the name of it. Yeah, the movies are all right. It's just standalone movies. They're just longer episodes. They don't really progress anything. But so it's a funny thing. It's like pretty much from a young age, I remember watching this, and I was more drawn to Scully than Mulder in the entire thing. I think it's more of a relatable thing. I was like, yeah, she thinks the way I think. But then she was, again, like a bit like your first pick. Was it Lulu? Was it the name?
Yeah.
That you said, she wasn't scared of discussing things and having her mind change and having her faith rocked, and being able to have a maybe a bigger understanding and having her opinion changed. And I think it's the same thing with Scully there. She's a very intelligent woman. She's a very well-spoken woman. She's somebody that's highly logical, but she doesn't mind leaving, open the door a little bit for something that is extra natural, something that is out there. If I want to steal the X-Files story, hello husband. And it's you get a shout out. So for anyone, again, and the X-Files was the same thing, that the same reason why I love X-Files was the same thing I had with Buffy, and it was this again during that time period where I was watching a lot of TV series, and I was like, that's one of those that mixes two things and got me out of those teenage years, difficult teenage years, and you have the extraordinary stories of monsters and little green men flying around in flying saucers, and you'd be like, okay, cool, that's cool. But then it had this or the character Scully that would ground the entire thing into reality, and that's something that I appreciate. That's something that I really love. Were you ever in the X-Files? Is that something you were into?
I didn't know. I wasn't really into it, but I've seen Gillian Anderson in other things. Like we just recently watched the first season of American Gods, and I mean, you just realize what a fantastic actress she is. So I think that probably what she brought, from what I can imagine, brought a lot to the role as well. But yeah, so so just from what I've seen about her, I can tell she's a very talented actress, and she's still going very strong to this day. But I know X-Files is very beloved, and also, like Buffy, was very influential on TV shows at a time. Like, you know, it's an ongoing story. And characters that can be multidimensional. It's like, you know, you don't just have that kind of big scale story in movies. You can have it in TV shows as well. So the X-Files and Buffy kind of came out like a few years apart, but were both very influential in TV that we get today. So yeah,
I think they're still very influential. They also, not to get too political about it, but especially in the US, I think the X-Files had a big impact on the generation that is now like us adults and parents, where to the point where because of the X-Files, you're told not to trust your government and trust official sources. And I think it's sort of transpired a little bit into society, and especially the American society, maybe Western Europe too. But you know, and I watched a bunch of interviews of
that came out like somehow more relevant today.
Yeah, it's somehow more relevant today, but it's like I watched a bunch of interviews on YouTube. I keep mentioning YouTube every episode, but of people are like, yeah, well, I grew up on the X-Files, and that's why I'm not trusting anyone. It's like taking as the X-Files as this, like, it wasn't a documentary, you guys. You know, it was a TV series. It's not something you're supposed to base your whole interaction with others on. You know, it's just chill. But yeah, so you know. If you want to watch X-Files, I think like you said, is it on Disney Plus now? It should have been brought by, because it belonged to Fox, so that should be on Star.
Yeah. Wait, okay. Important question. Does that make Scully a Disney princess then?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, as it is. I just looked at it. Yes, it is on Disney Plus, so she's a Disney princess now. Good. Wow, thank you. Just rocked my world. Mind blown. Cool. Oh no. Right, we press for time, Sarah. Enough of this nonsense. What do you got? What's your third and final recommendation as a cool, awesome character?
So I will go for an anime recommendation, because obviously I am known as you would call it, the anime director. For the record, I'm not an anime director. I just write about anime. But in the end, I realized I talked a lot about the female characters that I really liked in the podcast I was in. I didn't want to end up repeating myself. So, but I'm rewatching a show, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, recently, and I just have to talk about Rosa Diaz as my third choice. So Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a cop show, but it's a comedy cop show.
Yeah.
And it's mostly centers on Jake Peralta, who's kind of like a detective. It's a group of detectives, but Jake Peralta's kind of more the voice, where he's kind of a goof, doesn't always take things seriously, but it's his journey about taking things more seriously and learning. But around him, you've got a whole cast of characters. And Rosa Diaz is also a detective. On the surface, she looks very much like a typical strong female character. She's a badass. She wears leather jackets. She drives a motorcycle. She has multiple weapons on her. She's very proud of that she's a woman who owns an axe, swords, knives, guns, and of course gun, because obviously she's a cop. And she's very, very to the point, takes no crap, and basically the whole department's scared of her because she's such a badass. She doesn't even tell anyone where she lives. The moment a character enters her apartment, the next episode she said she's moving because she doesn't want anyone to know where she is. But part of her character growth across the series is she's still very much it's now the 7 seasons now, and she's still very much a badass. But in the very beginning of the show, as I said, she's very private person, closed off, doesn't let anyone in. Her ideal friendship is basically sitting in a pub and drinking in complete silence. But in the later seasons, as she goes through quite a lot, she starts to open up a little bit more with her friends, letting them know where she lives, for example, and also not afraid to kind of like joke around with them. There are a couple of times where in the early season where she just won't mucking with some of the ridiculous things they get up to, but in the later season she does. And one of the reasons why I also wanted to highlight her, she's also bisexual. She comes out in the season 5, about midway through season 5. And unlike probably some other people who probably thought, like other characters who come out as bisexual, gay, probably feels a bit shoehorned in, it makes sense for a character because, like I said, she was very closed off in the early season. So her only starting to open up in season 5 makes sense. And also the fact she talks about her dating life and allowing other people to know what she likes and being more comfortable with herself, and also allows her to express her sex talk about and express her own sexuality more. And speaking as someone who also came out as bisexual quite late in life, I found that quite aspirational as well. And she's also a woman of color, and she's played by the actress who's also bisexual. So, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine is actually really good for diversity, both in people of color. Captain Holt, he's an openly gay black captain, and he's probably one of my favorite characters as well. I love the fact that he's very kind of very straight, pencil pusher, very always follow the rules kind of guy. Then as you see him grow, he gets a bit more silly as the later seasons go on, and it's great seeing him kind of like, you know, embrace his more like more silly side of his character. It's a great, I highly recommend Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's a very funny show and also very, you know, like I said, very diverse. But I think season 8 is coming up next, and that's going to be the last season. I think it's going to end it on its own terms. But yeah, Rosa Diaz, I think is a great example of a badass character that seems to be untouchable, but really she does have a little like softer side, and she does grow. But yeah, so that's one of the reasons I picked her.
She's really cool. That she when I started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because I'm only in season, I must be like season 2 or 3, something like that. She was the one I was actually funny enough like drawn to. It's like she was so. Every time she opened her mouth, she was just so dark. It's just like, I was like, whoa.
Well, what I thought was really fun, like the actress herself, she's got a very high pitched voice, but her character Diaz is very low and like very blunt. So, and then sometimes when Rosa like imitates the other characters and goes to a high pitched voice, and aka the actress's original voice, everyone gets like, where did that come from? And it's really quite funny.
Yeah, no, she's so cool. I think she might be my daughter's favorite characters on the show as well. But she's just, I don't know, she's really quite the polar opposite to was it Peralta, right? Is the name of the main character. And I think that she complements him quite well, at least for what I've seen for the first couple of seasons. When like he's the one that is absolutely mad and taking, like you said, taking things not too seriously, and she's like quite the opposite of, you know, quite giving stern looks and being uber professional about her job and being closed off to everyone, where he's quite the opposite. He's like, you know, everything about him, like he's an oversharer, and she's like, you can't know anything about what she's going through. But again, you know, funny stuff you said about her sexuality, but her being, so she comes out as bisexual in season 5, but then also she's bisexual herself. I think that's pretty. So what do you know if that was by I was gonna say by design, but do you think that's something that got integrated into the stories, or something they went with as they started developing a character? Sometimes they do this kind of stuff where it's like, well, you know, it would be fun if it was, you know, if that character was.
Admittedly, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's good that the actress is bisexual, therefore bring some authenticity into that experience. I mean, so I mean, obviously you can get straight or heterosexual people playing gay characters, but I think that sometimes to make it feel more personal and authentic, you need someone who has also gone through something similar in the past. And like I said, someone who's come out of bisexual quite late in life and can always feel comfortable with it in the early stage. Find someone who also kind of, there's a few episodes of season 5 where she's kind of come, because you don't just come out once, you come out to your friends, you come out to your family, and seeing her going through that and realizing it's like your friends may accept you, your family might not, and going through that kind of trouble, but also in her very Rosa ways, how she comes out is very unique to Rosa. It's not like, because no one comes out in the exact same way, but how she says, I'm this, and then she said, right, you've got 60 seconds to ask questions, and that's very typical of her. Get it over and done with. So, and it feels, you know, it's like I said, it's a comedy show, but it feels real, very grounded, and it feels personal to her, but also done in a funny way. So I think that's why a lot of people were very happy with this development, because it didn't feel cheap or added on. It felt like an authentic growth of the character.
Like we say a lot on this podcast, is like representation is very important. I think that's what I'm asking the question, is that, you know, if because it's always, you know, the representation on screen of someone's, whether that's a you know, a personality trait or a character trait or you know, sexual trait. It's like you always, you know, it's very easy to get somebody to represent you as like something you can connect with, but if sometimes it feels a bit off when it's not also the same trait in a personal life, if you know what I mean. Like, you can have a character on screen that would be, you know, I identify to that guy because XYZ, but then in real life the guy is completely opposite. So that's what I'm asking, is like, it's I think it's a nice thing that both in private life and on screen is the same person in that aspect. I think that's quite a cool little thing that's happening. And again, representation matters, and that's great that, you know, that people identify with that and they can see, look, on screen what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, the way I'm myself, you know, on a day-to-day basis. It's also happening on TV, and it is fine. You know, a lot of people that can relate to that. All right, cool. So that was Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Rosa. Yes, we love Rosa. I'm going to go with my last one. And I think I'm going to switch it up, because I was going to talk about another video game character, but you know what? I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to go with somebody that actually I think I had a crush on, but because how the way she handles herself in the series. So it's another TV series. And it's Peggy Olson from Mad Men. Have you watched Mad Men?
Admittedly, I have not, but I've heard it's really, really good.
So Mad Men is awesome. It's super slow at time. You know, it's how should I describe it? I think it's a period drama, American period drama. I think we will that's to describe it. And it
it's
goes
the publishing
through,
world, right?
Yes, it's in the publishing world. I think between, I think in the 60s and 70s. So it goes throughout the entire, throughout the entire 60s, and then ends in the early 70s. So yeah, it's an advertising agency, and you've got all these powerful men that obviously in their 40s, around that age, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s. So they've gone through, you know, like world wars and all this stuff, and you know, your stereotypical men from that era, you know, of like, men are the best, and you know, women are like, you know, you'll be the secretary, you'll be there to serve us, right? Just be pretty, shut up, and do your job, you know, and be there 24/7 for our needs and wants. But then comes in Peggy Olson, who is quite the opposite of that. She's this very unassuming character that comes in, and she's a copywriter in season 1. So copywriter is basically they just spend the entire day at the desk, just typing away and writing whatever their male boss is asking of them, you know. It's like, and then they also run errands. So go get me a drink, go get me a coffee, go get me whatever it is, go get flowers for my wife, you know. So she comes in, she becomes this copywriter, but secretly she wants to be part of the guys team. She wants to be also like one of the head advertiser, and she's super talented for it. Like you see what she does, and then she secretly runs. Well, she doesn't run. She suggests a bunch of ideas to other more junior writers, and she goes, you know, you should do this. Maybe you should try that. And then, you know, she starts getting in there. She starts getting noticed by people around her. Like, look, she's really good. And then she has this breakthrough when she's actually hired as what's the word? One of the advertisers. One of the creative from the advertising agency, and she becomes this really high up. Well, she takes her time to get there because there's a lot of blockage on the way to the highest position, and she gets to it. You know, she's this badass character in her own way, that she's using her brain and her talents, creative talents, to get to the top. But then it's all of that, her own personal stories is set against the background of the 60s, America's 60s, where everything is about, if you're a man, you'll automatically be ahead of women. But also that was being switched around, because obviously the 60s and 70s is when this sort of revolution happened, sexual revolution. Also, I was going to say mental, it's not a word, attitude revolution in terms of how we deal people and how we deal with women in general. And that's really well portrayed in that series. So, again, if you don't mind the slow pace, there's some episodes that are really, 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 really slow to get by, but they all lead to something. Mad Men is one of the best things you can actually watch ever.
Yeah.
I said I haven't watched the last episode, so.
I've heard it's really good, and I'm also a fan of the actress who plays her, Elizabeth Moss.
Yes.
Because I watched Handmaid's Tale, and she's really good in that. And I also saw The Invisible Man, the movie she was in last year, and that was also really, really good.
Yeah, she's such a good actress as well. So it's an easy choice really for me. I was thinking about it. I was like, actually, of most of the characters I've picked to recommend was they all have some, well, that may not, like all the people I had on my list. My first choices were like, oh god, they all like powerful in a way, as in like with special powers, with special abilities, as in like Marvel characters, or Catwoman, or and again, it's like, well, how about somebody that actually anyone could relate with, like somebody that's just your office person, somebody that wants to make it, that wants to better herself and better her future and better her personal life by being really good at her job, and that's who she is. That's what she does. And I think that's something that is ultra relatable. Again, I don't have to be a woman. It's just like, it's just as a personality trait. It's like, but she's somebody that I wish I was a bit more at work, like somebody that will go get it. Yeah. Right, so we've got 3, you've got 3, I've got 3, we've got 3. Do you have any more, like maybe quick shout outs of other characters you want to mention? Maybe, well, I'm sure you do. I've seen your list, you've got a bunch of them, but
yeah, we could probably fire out some great women all day, really. I mean,
yeah, we could
we talked about the Uncharted series off air like last year, and I really liked Chloe from that series.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed playing her in Lost Legacy. And of course, you've got like other iconic females in video games like Lara Croft, who was one of the original sort of like female-led action games. Then you've got, obviously, like I said, there's a lot of anime that has a lot of fantastic women. So obviously Sailor Moon I talked about a lot in the last podcast I was in, and also the Ghibli films, which JC mentioned. Most of them are fronted by female characters, and Hayao Miyazaki is very much known for having, he actually had a very famous quote saying, "Many of my movies have strong female leads, brave, self-sufficient girls that don't think twice about fighting for what they believe with or their hearts. They'll be a friend or supporter, but never a savior. Any woman is just as capable as being a hero as any man," which I think kind of summarizes it perfectly, really. So yeah, there's like lots of different examples across different mediums if you want a female character to look up to, really.
Yeah, depends where you look, depends where you're looking for. There's a bit of everything. There's a lot to offer at the moment, and a lot of great. I mean, I've got a bunch of them as well, but like this, especially the last one I've been playing now, which is Kamala Khan, from the video games Marvel's Avenger. I don't know if you've picked that up just yet, but it's like a Marvel's Avengers game that came out last year, I think, on PlayStation 4. Maybe on Xbox, I can't remember, but if that is, but it got a lot of bad press because it wasn't really a finished game when it came out, or it was really disappointing to people. But now they've made a lot of work on it, and at the center of that game,
DLC for it recently, haven't they?
Yeah, there's a bunch of DLC that came out. They've actually did a PS5 upgrade, so I've downloaded that the other day and played that. It looks really even better now. But at the center of the game is Kamala Khan, and she's such a great character. She's very relatable. She's funny, but she's strong as hell. So it makes one one awesome character to play when there's a bunch of stuff blowing up around you, and she'll just get in there and destroy robots and kick asses. So definitely
making a Disney Plus.
There's going to be a Disney Plus. Yeah, she's going to be part of the Marvel universe. I think I'm actually looking forward to that. It's one of those characters that I wasn't really familiar with a few months ago, and it's only when I picked up the game I was like, actually, yeah, she's fun. You know, if the series is going to be done well enough, and I'm sure it will be done well enough because it's another Marvel product IP. You know, they'll I'm sure they'll kill it. You know, and this CGI is going to be awesome. I'm sure. The last two recommendations I'll bring to the table will be Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. So I think she's quite badass. Admittedly, I still have to finish the game, but hey, I think it's just because I suck as a player. But in terms of who she is, and in terms of character design and us following her along the storyline, I think she's such a great character. And again, along the same lines, Control. With the main character Jess, and I know you've not picked that up yet, but you've picked that up, but you've not played it yet, and I can only strongly advise you do, because that one also has got some badassery going on in there, and she's definitely.
I haven't played Control, but I have done Horizon Zero Dawn, so I really recommend that one as well.
Horizon, have you completed it? You've done that?
Yes.
The entire thing. Oh, cool. I need to get back into that one. Really, there's no excuse for me not to finish this one. It's such a great game. I think that's it. I think we've gone around. We could have gone on for another 2 or 3 hours because there's so many good, great female characters these days in video games, in movies, in comics, in animes. But again, I'm being very mindful of people not wanting to listen to 2 or 3 hours podcasts. So I'm being nice. So I'll wrap this very quickly. Thanks again, Sarah, for joining us. We'll be having you back soon, I guess, at some point. I'm sure we'll have another topic for us to discuss with you.
Thank you, and I really enjoyed being back. And I hope I kept the mic warm enough for JC when he comes back next week.
Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. And JC will be back, I think, this week or next week. And he's busy with work. You know, he's found something cool, so we'll let him go for a little bit. But he'll be back. He'll be back. What else do we have to say? Yes. Thank you for everyone who's been listening to us. We'll appreciate everyone who's hit the subscribe button recently, either on our YouTube channel or on our Instagram or Twitter page. If you want to listen to some more and enjoy a few more episodes, namely what we recorded with Sarah, which is the anime recommendation, which spanned over 3 episodes together. Mm-hmm. Make sure you go on to our Apple Podcast page or everywhere on social media. We're there. Just look up Catching Up with the Nerds. We'll be there. We are even on LinkedIn. Apparently, for some reasons, we're there. So if you're looking for a job, don't come knock at our door because we don't have any. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening to us one more time. We'll be back very, very soon with some more stuff. Thank you again, Sarah. And we'll have you back soon again, like I said. And that's it from us. See you guys in the next one.